a farm in Australia. I took a gap year when I finished school a couple of years ago, and I was lucky enough to come and visit your school. Ida took me with her for the day for a couple of days, and I got to go and give a couple of talks to the students and go and see the dairy, the mechanics, the forestry specialists, the dog trainers, the areas where you work with livestock, the sheep, cattle, the pigs. I got to see little piglets. I got to try sandwich cake, and it was a really good experience, and one I won't forget for a while. So a bit about me. I'm 21. I'm at university in Melbourne, which is a 5-hour drive from home. I'm studying mechanical engineering and commerce. So I'm 2 years in out of 5 years all up. So I live in Melbourne during the semester when I'm at uni, and then I come home and work on the farm during my holidays. This year, because of COVID, I've spent pretty much the whole year at home, which has been different because I've been living away from home for a long time now, but it's been good to spend a bit more time with the family. This is my dad, Michael. He was nice enough to take all of this cool drone footage for me. He works on the farm full-time with our workman Jason, and Mum, myself, and my 2 little sisters and my little brother, we all help out on the farm during our holidays and when Dad sort of needs a bit of extra help. This is Max. He loves the farm. Say hi, Max. We're located on the southern edge of Australia, about half an hour from the coast, and we've actually got 2 farms. So we've got Mingle, our main farm where we live, and then about a 40-minute drive away, just over the state border, we've got Woodford, which is our second farm, which is a little bit smaller. So Mingle is 615 hectares. It's reasonably flat with a little bit of hills and a few trees, that kind of thing. And then Woodford is smaller, it's only 270 hectares. And the country is quite different down there. It's very hilly, there's a lot of huge gum trees, and one of the farm boundaries is actually the river. So we go canoeing and stuff down there sometimes, that's quite fun. And all of Woodford, the water supply actually comes from a dam, whereas here at Mingle it comes from bores drilled into the ground. In the winter it's wet, we get a lot more rain in the winter than the summer. So the grass is green in the winter, and then as the summer comes in it dries off and it's all brown. So in the winter we have average temperatures of about 13 degrees during the day, and in the summer we have average temperatures of about 25 degrees, but we can get days up to 40 degrees, which is very hot. In the winter, sometimes at nighttime it can get to like -1 or -2, but it's pretty rare. So because of that, we don't have any barns in Australia. I actually hadn't really seen a barn in person until I came to Sweden, because they're just not a thing here because it doesn't get cold enough. On our farm we have beef cattle. We're a beef cattle farm, and we mostly have Angus cattle, black cattle as a breed, but we do have a few Herefords and other things every now and then, but mostly Angus. And we are traders rather than breeders, so most of the time we'll buy cattle when they're pretty young, fatten them up, and then sell them to a feedlot or to kill to a slaughterhouse. But actually at the moment, cattle prices in Australia are ridiculously high, like probably the highest we've ever seen them. So just to work around that, Dad's actually bought over 300 pregnant heifers. So come January, February, March, we're going to be doing a lot of calving, which will be different because we don't normally do that. So these ones here are PTIC, they're preg tested in calf, and they are going to be calving in about a month's It's now the very beginning of February, and these are the pregnant heifers that are calving any day now. I think just a handful of them have calved already, and here's a little calf just here. That one's only a few days old with its mum. Here's another little one here, and their mum's just over there. On the farm we also have irrigation. We have 3 pivots, and some of those we use for ourselves. We put cattle on them, so even during the summertime when all the grass is dry, the ones that are about to be sold can have good green grass and fatten really well even in summertime. Some of the other pivots we lease out to croppers. So one pivot is being leased out for potatoes at the moment, and another pivot, I think half of it is carrots and then a little bit more of it is radish. But we've also had canola in the past, so it changes year to year what crops we've got growing on those. This is the canola that we have growing at the moment. We're not growing it ourselves, we're leasing out the land and another company is growing the canola, but they have lots and lots of different plots because they're growing new varieties. They're testing out lots of different varieties of canola, which will then be produced on a really big scale if they're successful. And you can see down the very end there is the irrigation system, which is different to our other pivots because instead of moving in a circle, it just moves in a straight line up and down the crop. So it's been a few weeks since we filmed the drone footage of the canola, and I just wanted to give a bit of an update. So we've got canola flowering here, and all these other little plots that you would have seen before are now in tents. And so in each of these different tents, there's a different variety of canola, and the tents stop the bees and flies and things that are living in the tent from going between varieties and cross-pollinating them. So this would be one variety in here. You can sort of, not sure if you can see the bees living in there, but the tents are pretty thin because the irrigation has to be able to spray through them to water them. And you can see the entrance is just there. So you can see in this tent they're actually using bees there, that's a bee there, as well as flies to pollinate it. So these here are large tents, and then if you come over here, these are a bunch of smaller tents. So this is a smaller tent here with the flies inside there, and it's made of sort of a plastic mesh. I'd imagine they probably don't reuse these the same as they would reuse those larger tents. But yeah, that's how the canola crop is looking at the moment. So here you can see the pivot that we have just moved over the road. We had to knock over a few lines of trees to put it in. And this is full of potatoes. So our neighbours Buckley's are growing potatoes here, and on the left you can see it's a different variety to on the right. They've got, I believe the ones on the left are for crisps and the ones on the right are going to McCain's for hot chips. That's why the plants are two different colours there. So as you can see, there are circles. They're the wheel tracks that the pivot makes as it goes round. And as we get closer, you can start to see the rows of potatoes. So we upgraded our yards a few years ago, and that included installing an electronic crush. So we control the gates on the crush in the yards using a remote control, and compressed air is used to open and shut the gates. So that includes the gate at the front of the crush, the gate at the back of the crush, a 5-way drafting system going out the front, and the back gate as well. It's made things a lot more efficient. It's very handy because you can be standing in the right spot and the cattle move through quicker. And the footage you're about to see is from a day of weighing, drafting and injections in the yards. So today we're weighing these steers. This half just needs to be weighed and the other half over there needs to get immunisations ready to go to the feedlot.
Don't film that. Hey. Walk up, come on. Hey. Guys. Walk up. Hey. Come on.
Up you go. Walk up. Hey. Walk up. Come on. Come on. So now we've got them all in the race. We've got 7 here. Jason's on the buttons. And this is the weighing machine here. So we're drafting them by weight. So depending on how heavy they are, a different gate opens and they'll go into a different paddock.
And guess what this one's called?
Pen 1, pen 2, pen 3, pen 4, and pen 5. So, dip it in the antiseptic. And we come in here, stick it in there. And that's all done. With the gun here, you just give it a bit of a squeeze. You can adjust it to different doses. That's the antiseptic in there.
Bubbleless. Where do I give it a name?
So this one, unfortunately, has some Pinkeye. See the eye there? And we're going to give it some treatment, which comes in a syringe like this. We're going to treat it with this dry cow here. So these are the fences that we use on the farm. They're called Techno. Not all farms in Australia do this. This is quite unique. But it's just 2 wires like this for all the internal fences on the farm, and then we have normal 8-wire fences for the boundaries going out to the road. But there's 2 wires here, each with springs, and then if you come up here, these are the posts that we use. They're fiberglass posts, so you can stand on the fence. I've got wet boots, so I'm not going to at the moment, otherwise I'll get an electric shock. But you can kind of see these posts, they're quite bendy, so you can actually drive over the fence using the vehicle here. So this is the side-by-side here, and these pipes on the front is what lets it drive over the fence. So the fence comes up here and it gets pushed down underneath. These pipes go all the way under and stop it getting caught underneath. And then actually Jason's driving it now. He'll just drive over the fence. Just like that. So these are the tapes and the posts that we use to build temporary fences on the farm. So all the permanent fences are built out of wire. Temporary fences are built using this tape. So as you can see, it's pretty bendy, pretty flexible, and it's made out of this plasticky sort of stuff, but it's got wire threaded through it, so it's actually electric. And then we use these posts to build the fence, and they just sit on the back of the bike like this. So they're fiberglass as well, so they're bendy. But if we come out here to the grass, so they're called tread-ins because you can just stand on them like this, and then they stick in the grass like that. And then the tape is threaded through this hole here, and that's how you build the fence. So here's a fence here that's already been built. That's just attached to the end there, and there's the wire going through there, and that makes temporary fence. So we've got a tape fence here attached to a wire fence here, and we're about to roll it up using the quad bike. So this is a different reel here, but what it does is it goes on this here, and
there's an electric motor down there, spins,
and that's how the tape gets rolled up.
tape guides around here behind the bike. The tread ends come in here and get taken out of the ground. It's a tread end retractor, or the white post retractor. The friction on those plates there rubbing on here is what makes it spin.
So Dad's just winding up the fence now. You can see the tape's getting wound up as he drives along, and then coming up to the tread in here. There we go. There we go. All he has to do is untie the knot off the other end of the fence and that fence is gone. So now we're building a fence and Dad's just tying the tape onto the wire fence.
Everything's hot. That's hot. Can't feel because of the rubber insulating me. Got about 4,000 volts there.
Perfect. You don't want to be wearing wet boots because then no insulation and you get zapped. So as you can see, this is the fence getting built here. And when Dad winds the reel onto the other end, that fence will tighten up and the cattle won't be able to get through. In terms of the pandemic this year, we have been very, very lucky. It's been a good year to be a farmer as opposed to a hospitality worker or someone working a shop or something like that. We've been able to keep working relatively normally all the way through. Probably the biggest thing that has affected us is state border closures. When there's been outbreaks in one state of Australia, all the other states tend to shut their borders and stop people moving between them, which is a problem for us because we have one farm in South Australia on one side of the border and another farm in Victoria on the other side. So we've had to get exemptions to be able to travel over the border, and it's involved getting COVID tests and things like that. Because our other farm, Woodford, is less than 40 k's over the Victorian border, we were lucky enough to get exemptions all the way through. But some other farmers had farms that were spread further apart, and that made it really difficult for them to get across and to get work done on their other farm and to sell livestock over the border like they normally would, which has caused some problems. In terms of cattle sales, they've still gone ahead in person mostly, but visitors haven't been able to go and watch. You've only been able to go if you're actually buying cattle. People have had to wear masks at the sales, and online auctions have actually become a lot more popular. So Dad's been logging on to Auctions Plus, which is a website where they sell cattle online. He goes on every week, and he'll sit at the computer for an hour or two while the auction happens, and he can literally buy cattle through online shopping, which is something new. One of the things we do a bit differently on our farm to other farms in Australia is low stress stock handling. You can do a course on it. I haven't actually done the course, but I've learnt it from my dad who has. And the basic principle of it is that you want to reduce the stress you're putting on the cattle as much as you can, which is better for them. They behave more predictably, and it's better for you as well because you get stressed out as well if you're yelling and getting frustrated at them all the time. So, for example, if we're moving cattle down a laneway from one spot to another. We'll never make them run, we'll just let them walk, plod along at their own pace until they get there. And that means that they won't jump over any fences or do anything silly, which actually saves you time in the long run. It also involves things like if you're pushing some cattle along through a paddock, you're better to be on the side of them because their eyes are in the side of their head and they like to see where you are instead of being directly behind them where they can't see you. So it just makes it a bit more comfortable for them. So little things like that really help the way that we do things and reduce the stress on the cattle and on us as well. Now you're going to see some footage of a day of preg testing those pregnant heifers we were looking at earlier. The vet comes and visits and he has an ultrasound stick which he puts up inside the heifer and he can see the calf and he lets us know how many weeks it'll be until that heifer is going to calve. You'll get to see on the little screen what he's seeing and that's how he decides how many weeks.
All the Swedish words we know. Yoghurt, Stockholm, Frida, eight. I've got to grid off. I've got to look at the body, the trunk, and grid off what age they're at.
Okay.
And that gives me like no idea. I know. This starts me off at 12 and 10, but 7, and I kind of know every one of them anyway. Now, but I know what's flipping does. Calf here, 6 weeks. Little one there, 6 weeks. At the centre. We'll rotate back and forth so there's no twins or anything. 6 weeks and nothing. 13 weeks, 1, 2, 3, 14. 3.5. 13 weeks.
So this is the gun that we use for ear tagging. So these pieces just go on like this. This is the male part. And then the female part just goes in there. So then you just hold it like this, and I'm not going to squeeze it right now, but that squeezes together like that. And we just position it in the cow's ear so that it's not going through the bone or the cartilage, it's just going through the soft part, one of the gaps. So normally the cow's head would be in the crush here, and you just line it up in the right spot and then squeeze, and that gets the ear tag in. So that tag before was just a visual tag so that we can tell which animal it is by looking at it, but all animals in Australia have to have one of these tags as well. it's got an electronic chip in this bit in here so that the cow can get scanned, and as you can see, the back part of it says do not remove, because you're not allowed to take these out. That stays with the animal so that it can be identified across different properties. If the animal happens to rip out their tag or something, or they lose it, then you have to replace it with one of these orange ones. So same thing, same chip, but the orange tag just shows that it's not the original tag that the cow had since birth. And you can register online the new tag with the old one to show that it's the same animal, and provide that traceability for its whole lifetime. So in Australia, each different property has a property identification code, or a PIC, and that's just a number that's used to represent your property. So if you have two farms that are pretty close to each other, you can go under the same number, but because our two farms are over a border, we have to have two separate numbers for each farm. So when we truck cattle from one farm to the other, we can go online and transfer them from one to the other. And when we sell cattle, we write our PIC down on the paperwork so that they know where they've come from. So if you look at these electronic tags, the electronic chip inside identifies the actual animal, and this number that's written on it is our PIC. So anyone who buys cattle from us for their whole lifetime, no matter how many times they're sold, the farmers will be able to look at the PIC and go back and find out where that animal was born. So this is the yards, and this is where we load cattle onto trucks. I'm not sure if this is the same system as what you have in Sweden, but the cattle come all the way up the race and up the stairs, and then the truck backs onto this part here. So the back of the truck is there, and the truck would then be out this way. In Australia, we have a few different size trucks, but we mostly use B doubles, which fit 77 cattle at 500 kilos when they're ready to sell. So if they're smaller than that, obviously you can fit a few more on, or if they're really big, then you can't fit quite so many. We also have road trains when you're going a really long distance, and that has 3 trailers and you can fit even more on. Most of the cattle that we sell travel 500 kilometres to Melbourne, but some other cattle can travel, thousands of kilometres across Australia, and that's why we have road trains, just because they're travelling so far, and it would be ridiculous to send 3 or 4 trucks when you could just send one. So that's pretty much it from me. This video has ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would, but I've tried to squeeze a lot of different things in there, and hopefully it's given you a bit of an idea of how we do things here, and hopefully you've learned something new from it. See you!